Hello, this is my third attempt at making my video about my mother's story. So hopefully this time it works. I've tried it on a walk, tried it on a recorder, so hopefully. So basically, the story begins with my grandmother. She was one of 8 children. She was the oldest of 8 children, I should say. She didn't have a fantastic childhood. She was born in 1913. There wasn't a lot of money back then, and things were pretty hard. Women were not told a lot of things. They were just kind of, get in line, and kids were to be seen and not heard. All those cliches we know about from back in the early 1900s. And so that's what my grandmother was raised up in. And her mom was very, very strict. And my grandma, in turn, was very, very strict. My mom was a little bit less strict than her. And I was even, less. I never beat my kid or anything like that. I've had a few whippings in my day. My mom had a few more than me, and her mom had a few more than her. And sadly, that's just the way it was. And it's really sucked. But, anyways, so it starts with my grandma, and I don't know a whole lot because my grandma really never talked about her past, just little pieces here and there. I think she just thought, I better just forget about it and just move along. So I never really knew a lot of her feelings about life. She just told me situations, but not like things. Oh, that's weird. I know she really loved her father, and he worked on the railroad, so he wasn't home a lot. So that left the mother, my great grandmother, to take care of kids and stuff, mm, and she had 8 of them, and kind of messed up her body a little bit. She had a lot of physical ailments due to it, but she was a very strong Christian woman. She read the Bible all the time. She went to church all the time, and I know she loved my mom dearly. My mom was like her favorite person as my mom grew up. But anyways, one of the youngest of the 8 children had passed away and was buried like on her 12th birthday, I think it was. She had had a brain tumor, brain cancer, and it was very devastating for the family. And by the time my grandmother was, I think, I want to say like 19, 18, 19, she was like just done. She, because life was too hard. She was a babysitter. She was this, she was that. She didn't have a lot of freedom. She ended up meeting a man. His name was Charlie, and he was a drinker and a skirt chaser. But she fell for him, and he tried to have his way with her, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And not till I'm married, I won't even kiss you. And so it wasn't too long. He said, "Well, let's get married." So she said, "Okay." So they got married, and they lived in Southern Illinois. And so he told her right away, wasn't too long, and she got pregnant. And he told her, "Well, I really didn't want any kids, but I'll deal with this one. But after this, I just definitely do not want more kids." And she's like, "Okay." I mean, and she really did not even know how babies were made because they didn't talk about it back then. It wasn't in school. They just didn't share that. So, she knew something, but she didn't know the intricacy of it, right? Even though she's married now. So anyway, so it was so bad that when she was going to have her baby, she was about close to 9 months pregnant. She asked her mother. She said, "Hey, how's this baby going to get out?" And she said, "The same way it got in there." My grandma's like, "I don't really know how it got in there." And that's about all my grandma shared. She didn't really elaborate too much more on anything. And now the story I'm going to tell now, I never knew all these details until I was older. Some of it when I was about 17, and the rest of it when I was about 27. So it was a long time coming before I got to hear some of the reality of my mom's life and my grandmother's life, and it's pretty crazy. So anyway, so my grandmother had my aunt. Her name was Naomi, who I was named after, and I love my aunt dearly. So she's married to Charlie. She has Naomi, and he tells her, "Okay, this is it. I don't want any more kids." And so they're just, going along. But in the meantime, he's drinking, and he's chasing a couple women here and there. And I think Grandma just kind of ignored it. She was young. What was she going to do? And then 3 years later, my mother was born. Well, when she got pregnant with my mother, he got very mad. He was like, "I told you I didn't want any more kids." And he beat the crap out of her and just, I mean, horrible. And started drinking and just being with other women. And my grandma, I'm not sure if it was just before my mom was born or after my mother was born, but she ended up leaving him because she knew it wasn't going to work out. So trying to be cognizant of the time, so I have about 5 minutes. I'm going to tell this in segments. So she ends up leaving him and then moving back, I believe, with her mother. And so she took my aunt and my mom to go live with her mom. And she divorced. I don't know if she divorced him, but separated, whatever, right? And so then now she's raising two daughters by herself because he didn't help. He was like, yeah, whatever. And eventually she did move out on her own, and she took care of my mom and my aunt on her own. And I think somewhere down the line, her mother, they lived in southern Illinois. Her mother had moved somehow north to Chicago, which is north of where they were at. And I'm not sure how my mom was at that time, but I do know that my mom was with her grandma a lot. They used to go to church together. And in those times of church, there was a young boy named Martin who befriended my mother, and he cherished my mom. And he was in love with her since he was like 13 years old, and my mom was about like 11, right? So he totally watched out for her. He wouldn't let anybody hurt her, and he just cherished her. So he would go to church with her and her grandmother, and then when my mom was, I think about 14 and a half, my grandmother, no, sorry, let me back up. So before that, so when my mom was about 8, her husband, my grandmother's husband, Charlie, got a hold of her and said he wanted her back. He wanted to try to make his family work. He's quit. He doesn't drink anymore. He's changed his life, and he wants his family. So my grandma still loved him very much. So she packed up the kids and moved to San Francisco, that's where he was living in San Francisco. So got on the train and took the kids there. So they were there with him, but he refused to even talk to my mom because he just, the idea that he didn't want her, so he didn't even want to deal with her. But he did talk to my aunt. He spent time with her. He would take her for ice cream or go on walks. But my mom, he absolutely acted like she didn't exist. And my poor mom, she can feel this and see this. It's like, how sad is this? And my aunt is just eating it up. No one's caring for my mom. My grandma's just happy to be with her husband. And I don't think she was really paying attention to how my mom was feeling about things. And if she did, she just kind of put it aside. But my mom wasn't going to say, hey, deal with me. My mom would sit back and just love you anyway, take whatever kind of love she could get. And now, then she's away from her grandmother. And I think when they went to Chicago is when the grandma, I think that might be, or maybe not yet. Sorry, my brain. So they live in San Francisco. And then after a while, he started drinking again and started chasing after women again. And my grandma finally said, I'm done. This can't work. So they lived there for about 6 months. So she packed him up and she moved back to Illinois and then moved back in with her mother and her father. His grandpa was still alive. And then in the meantime, her dad had passed away, and they buried him. And so that it was just the mom. And then eventually the mother, somehow she moved to Chicago. The grandma did eventually, like maybe a year or two later. So then when my mom was about 14, my grandmother met another man, and I don't know his name. I just know that she married him, and then he had family in Utah, and he was going to go live in Utah, so my grandma was going to go live there with them. And now in the meantime, my Aunt Naomi was 18 by now, so she got married and to some weird guy. That marriage didn't last forever because he was very abusive too. Mm. A lot of abuse back in these days. So she was married. So there was just my mom and my grandma, and now my grandma's married and gonna move to Utah. In the meantime, my mom still has this friend Martin, and they're in southern Illinois, and so I don't know that if the man didn't want her or my mom didn't want to go. I'm not sure the story, but she moved to Chicago to go live with her grandmother, and so because that's where her grandma lived. So she had to leave Martin, and he was really upset about it. But what are you gonna do when you're a kid? I think he's probably like maybe 16. He doesn't have a car. He can't just like take an airplane, go see her, or drive. He doesn't. It's a long drive, like a 3-4 hour car ride, and trying to take a train or something would be expensive and just a very long time. So anyway, so they parted ways, and she moved to Chicago. And it wasn't too long. She's enrolled in school, and my mom's just I'm going to show pictures later. She's a very, very beautiful girl. Blonde hair, blue eyes, super tiny, just a very pretty woman, little young girl. And so she's in school, and there's this boy there named Bob, and he totally likes my mom. And all the girls want Bob, and now they all hate my mom, jealous of her because Bob likes her. And she's the new kid, and they're taking away the guy that everybody's wanted and all this stuff. And so they used to tell her, well, he only likes you for one thing, and once he gets it, he's going to drop you. So now my mom's like 15 years old, and she's like, well, he's not getting anything from me. So eventually, that was about a few weeks, just like my grandma's story, he asked her to marry him because he knew he wasn't going to get anywhere with her. So she marries him. And no sooner they got married, he started beating her, hitting her. And then my mom was just like, stuck with this guy. And then it wasn't too long after that my grandmother got divorced and moved back to Illinois. And then her mom moved, or Southern Illinois. Then the grandma, my mom's grandma, moved back to Southern Illinois as well, I think. See, my grandma really never shared all the story, and like I said, I didn't hear about it until I was older. So now my mom's married to this abusive idiot, and then right away she gets pregnant, and here she's 8 months pregnant, and they're like in Chicago somewhere walking, and if a man actually made contact with her eyes and kind of smiled at her, she's pregnant, and she smiled back. Oh my gosh, he freaked out. He just socked her, gave her a black eye. And my mom's just like, oh man, she just doesn't know what to do. This is craziness. So she has the baby. She's very young, and the baby came super fast. They didn't have time to give her a episiotomy or anything, and so it just like ripped her up a little bit. And they had to stitch her up the front and the back. And it's very painful. And she came home when my sister was 2 days old. And then the nice guy that he is, he forced himself on her. And he just tore all the stitches out of her and just was a jerk. And so my mom had to go to the hospital, and the doctor fixed her up. And the doctor looked at him and said, don't you ever touch this girl again. And so Bob kind of like backed off. And he wasn't like sorry that he did it, but he was sorry like he doesn't want to get in trouble, right? So he kind of backed off a little bit after that. And then a little time goes by, and he's just being more and more abusive, and my mom finally had enough. And my grandmother, like I said, had moved back to Southern Illinois. So she said, I'm done. I'm out of here. I can't be with you anymore. And so she's 17 now, and she moved back home with her mom and divorced Bob, and he was really not happy about that. And it wasn't so much he loved her, he wanted to control her in that conquest, that narcissism. He's a perfect example of a narcissist. In fact, not to change the story, when he was on his deathbed getting ready to die, and my sister was older, he told the family, do not tell, and her name is Connie, do not tell Connie that I'm dying. I don't even want her to know I died. I mean, how controlling is that? even to his death. He just wants to be just nasty. So that's the kind of guy he was. So, but he was super handsome, blue eyes, and all the girls woohoo all over this guy, and he just is a nothing burger, right? So, so my mom moves back to her mother's house with my sister, and that's about all I have time for right now. And I will pick up on the next video. So stay tuned. Anybody listening, thank you for listening. And I promise it gets good. I might be mumbling a little bit, but once I get to the story, the more of the stuff that I know a little deeper, it's really a good story. So, well, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.